Welcome back to another episode of Projecting Grandeur. I am your host, Ron Dichter. Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate you being a part of our community. Today I want to talk about a little different spin on something that many of you probably already understand, which is the concept of the lifetime value of a customer. And when you think about the lifetime value of a customer, the obvious things play into it. But when I think about what I hope to gain from a customer or having a customer, I try to think about some of the intangibles that factor into it that are maybe a little harder to quantify and maybe a little bit more squishy, if you will, in the world of probably how my CFO would talk to me, in kind of how you value the relationship that you have with that customer. So the obvious things of lifetime value are obviously the revenue that you generate both upfront and long term, and then how long the customer on average will stay with you. And you obviously can factor all of that stuff in, and that's pretty quantifiable and easy to understand and digest. But what are some of the things that are intangibles, maybe a little bit harder to measure? And I think part of the point of this is being able to actually measure those things in a meaningful way, because I do think that the intangible values of a customer shouldn't be overlooked, and in some cases, depending on your business model, actually may be more valuable than the obvious revenue side of the customer. And so figuring out those things are an important part of understanding the customers that you bring in and what kind of value that you're going to get from them long term. So let's talk about this. So when I bring on a customer, again, the upfront revenue generated from that customer and the monthly revenue generated from that customer, those are obvious ones, and you can factor those in and put them on a spreadsheet, and pretty easy to quantify. But let's take some of the intangibles. So in my line of business with software, reviews are really important. And when we look to bring on a new customer, more often than not, they're going to go online and type in, our business and the word reviews after it, or some other version of that. And what comes up will have a determining factor oftentimes on if somebody is going to do business with us. And so when I have a customer that leaves me a positive review, then that positive review has value. Now, how do you assign a value to that? That can be different based on the business type that you have. But to me, every 5-star, some 4-star reviews, bring value and bring me the potential to earn a new customer. And so how do you quantify that? Okay, we'll come back to that. Another way that I look at lifetime value of the customer is the referral opportunity. Now, if you are waiting for a business to refer you somebody, that's one thing. But if you are asking the business to refer you somebody and they're receptive in doing that, that's something totally different. And so now we have reviews, we have referrals, right? And then what I look at is the customer service implication, or how much time, effort it takes to service that customer. And again, everybody's line of work is different, but when I have a customer, based upon the type of business it is, the vertical that they operate in, it is going to determine how much effort it takes. And that effort then again has a cost to it, that detracts from the lifetime value. And again, everybody's business is different, and I don't want to pretend like I know all the little nuances or tentacles of a customer relationship that you get entangled with in a good and a bad way. But trying to understand all of the different places that a customer can impact the business positively. Again, reviews and referrals are two examples, but it could vary wildly in your business. But understanding those things also help you to then figure out how to assign a value. And so the way I do it is I look at the review and I assign a value, albeit it's a bit arbitrary as to what that value is. But one of the things that my sales team asks a new client when they come on board with us is, number one, how did they find us? And number two, what made them decide to work with us? And when the answer is reviews, and we look at the lifetime value of those customers coming in, we assign a percent allocation to that. So for example, if 1 out of 3 customers that we talk to say that reviews and our positive reviews is one of the reasons that they worked with us, well, then we assign a value to that. And in our example, what we do is we take 1/3 of the revenue that customer brings in, and we assign half value to it. So that means that every third customer, we give half credit to the review for the sale, which then actually translates to a dollar amount. You just take 50% of 1/3, and that becomes your dollar amount. My point to this is not the math behind it. Everybody's business is different. My point is that you have to assign these values. And so when you start thinking about what your lifetime value of your customer is, don't just think about it in the obvious ways. And you can certainly break this down in two buckets. As you look at it, you can look at, here's the direct lifetime value of my customer, and here's the indirect lifetime value of my customer. And then you can come up with the math to make business decisions, because like I'm sure many of you in my business, I am faced with decisions throughout the day on whether we should or shouldn't do something for a particular business. Maybe it's we're giving them a free month of service. Maybe it's we're discounting something, or maybe we're giving them an extra hour of onboarding. All of these things have a cost to it. But when I fully understand both the direct and the indirect lifetime value of that customer, I can make a more calculated decision on if I should or shouldn't do that thing for this customer. Is it worth it? And the other part of lifetime value of the customer is you have to set what good looks like for your business. Let's just say, for example, your lifetime value of a customer is $5,000, just picking a random number. And $5,000 is kind of what you expect from a customer. And if you get anything less than that, then you start to ask yourself, should I be doing any sort of special circumstances? Should I be doing any additional training, onboarding support, things like that? And then should my comp plan change, right? Because if you're not paying your sales team based on the lifetime value of the customer, and they're signing customers that maybe have a diminished lifetime value, well, that's going to eventually erode your margins long term. So, understanding the direct and the indirect lifetime value of your customer can be a really valuable tool for you to be able to make, both strategic and tactical decisions based on the long term of the business, and then the day-to-day decisions that will help carry out that long-term strategy. And so it's really important to understand these things. And nobody ever talks about the indirect lifetime value of the customer. Everybody focuses on, the direct lifetime value of the customer, which, don't get me wrong, is very important. But there are intangibles that oftentimes are significantly beneficial, potentially in some small client cases, actually more valuable than the value of that customer itself. And obviously then the other part of that we can do is, if you decide that the referral aspect or the review aspect, just as my two examples, is something that is meaningful to the business, well, maybe now there's a way that you can actually add some sort of reward system with your client base to be able to actually accelerate some of those referrals and reviews. So anyway, just food for thought for today, but really understanding both your lifetime value of the customer in direct and your indirect lifetime value of the customer will help you make long-term better decisions, and obviously understanding where to spend your time. So hope you find this helpful. Hope this was useful for you in your journey. Please don't forget to like and comment, and most importantly, please share. It's the only way that the word gets out there. I have nothing to sell you, nothing to offer. I'm just doing this because I care and I want to impact one life a day. So I hope this helped yours, and maybe share it with somebody else so we can impact theirs. Have a good day, everyone.